Hello and welcome to Classically Imperfect, an organization dedicated to providing mental health and wellness resources to young classical musicians. I'm Mary Lizalde, one of the co-founders and the director of operations, and today I am joined by Isamel Guerrero, who is a professional cellist, teaching artist, and LAFIL resident fellow. Today we'll be discussing the transition to joining a professional orchestra right after graduating college, as well as how to balance other hobbies and interests. Hi Ismael, how are you?
Good, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. As I said in the email, like all my friends watch all of your Instagram reels and we love you.
Oh,
Nice.
thank you. Appreciate the support.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about your musical background and how you got involved in music?
So I'm originally from Cuba. Um, and it all started when I was around, I would say 5 years old. I think my parents just noticed that I used to learn all the lyrics from songs that would randomly show up in the TV, like from like shows or anything. And I was just like, I remember I used to have this like bad toy that I used to simulate playing it as if it was a guitar. And
Mm,
then I would just like sing the lyrics along. And so my parents caught onto that, and they thought that they should just kind of encourage me to do something with music. So I think when I was 7 years old, they took me to this workshop where they kind of like started kids in music. Like they made them like learn songs, and it was just basically a workshop. It was kind of like a preparation to get into the music school, because that's the thing in Cuba. If you really want to get like a good music education, you actually have to go to a music school. Otherwise, the music education that you get is, sadly to say, bad, like
mhm.
really bad. But so yeah, so we decided that I should probably go into a music school. So when I was at the workshop, I remember my teacher back there, she like tested a few things, and at the end she said that if I really wanted to get into music, I wanted to pick an instrument, like I should probably pick the cello, because my arms were long and like my fingers were long, so it seemed like I was like physically prepare for the instrument.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I had no idea what the cello was, but I don't know. I feel like I'm a very open-minded person, so I usually just kind of take advices. I mean, I receive them and then I like process them, and if they fit me, I'll like take them. And being a kid, I'll probably just, okay, she clearly knows what she's doing, so I'll just probably go with the cello. I remember I had interest in the violin and the piano. The violin because it was like a very popular instrument, as well as the piano.
Mhm.
So yeah, when I got into taking the entrance exams for music school, I remember there was this specific exam where they asked me like which instruments I wanted to pick, and they gave me like two slots for like two different instruments, and I said, okay, I'll pick the cello and also the piano.
Mm.
And at the end, like when the results came, I was really thrilled that I got into the music school, and they let me know that they had chose me for cello. And then like it was my top pick, so I was like really happy, but I still didn't know like which kind of world I was going into, because I didn't really know about the instrument. And then I was also happy because I chose cello and piano, and we had to learn piano anyway, because it was like a complementary like study. So I was like, I'll say I was like pretty happy. So yeah, that's kind of like how I started, like just like kind of like diving into a world that was like very unknown for me. But I do remember this lesson closer to like my beginnings. I remember back then, like I used to not have a piano. A lot of my friends had a piano, so it was kind of easier for them to like practice. And in all my lessons, I remember my teacher back then. She used to do stuff with me in the piano. Like I'll play like we'll learn like a little scale or like a little melody, and like she would like make an
Mhm.
accompaniment in the piano. And I remember that back then I used to not practice, because in my mind, I was like, well, I don't have a piano. How am I gonna practice if I don't have a piano? Even though I had a cello, right? Like
Mhm.
they had given me a cello in the music school, but I was like, well, I guess like I won't practice. So there was one time that I show up to the lesson without practicing,
Mm.
and my teacher realized that. I mean, I was not prepared because I didn't practice. So my teacher realized that, and she went out there looking for my mom, and she yelled at my mom. She was
Mm.
like, "Why is your kid not practicing? What's going on? Why is he here? Like kids here should practice." And
Mhm.
I remember like my mom told me after, and I was like really embarrassed for her because I really thought it wasn't like a fact that I didn't want to practice. I just really thought I just couldn't practice because I didn't have the conditions for it.
Mhm.
But then I realized I actually could, and ever since then, that just kind of like switched my goals and like my energy towards the instrument. And like after that, I just started like practicing every day, and I fell in love with the instrument and in this instrument. And now, well, now I'm here. I mean, there's still like a really long journey to go, hopefully, but kind of happy where I am now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
A similar thing happened to my brother. He also plays cello. He was fooling around all the time. And it got to a point where like they would talk to my parents every single week about his behavior and how he wasn't practicing and how he wasn't doing what he was supposed to. But then once he got to high school, he did the entrance exam for our high school and then everything like completely changed. I don't know if it's a cello thing or
Yeah, maybe. But
but
yeah, I mean, sometimes it just takes us like a little bit of exploration to really know what we want, and that's okay.
yeah.
Like even for me, like I feel like one of the main difference between like the education system in Cuba and the education system in the United States is like here you have more room for exploration. As I was telling you, in Cuba, I really had to go into a music school when I was 8 years old. That means that I kind of like had to devote myself to a music school. And like once you get into a music school, you like everything is like focused towards that. Okay, like you get like normal subjects like math, biology and all that. But you basically divide your day between like music session half of the day and then like academic session. So, like we really don't have more exploration like stuff like sports and other kind of like areas where you might want to explore. So it's like kind of, it's like
Yeah.
a double-edged sword because
Yeah.
you start developing different skills like it's really you focus on like developing one skill since early young, but what about the rest, right? So
Yeah,
you don't
definitely.
really have much room for exploration, I would say.
Yeah. At
Yeah.
my high school, we also split up the days like academics in the morning and arts
Mm.
in the afternoon. But that's when we know, we have a little more time to figure
Yeah.
out what we want to do. But yeah, what was your transition from college to the LA Phil? Like, were there any, I can only imagine your schedule in the LA Phil right now. And like, were there any major obstacles that you faced or just something that was like really shocking to you?
Well, in my case, it was quite of an adjustment,
Mhm.
mainly because, frankly, with you, I was never really interested in orchestra. Like, if I tell you that I never took a rep class in my life, never took an extra class, I never really like practice exercise at all.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I had this opportunity to audition to the fellowship in like a very vulnerable
Mm,
time of my life. I,
mhm,
I wouldn't say vulnerable, but like, it's like that time of your life like where you are not sure what you're gonna do next.
mhm,
I was finishing like grad school and I just really didn't know what I was gonna do next. So this opportunity came, and I was like, okay, I have to give it my all and like hopefully, we will
mhm,
start from there. And that's what happens. And I was lucky enough to like get into the program. And of course, I was very excited, but as I was telling you before, like I didn't really have much experience playing. Of course, I mean, I've played with professional orchestras, meaning like I've played with other professional musicians,
mhm.
right? Like it's like let's say pick up soccer, pick up orchestra. Like there's like really
Yeah.
good musicians get together and then we
Mhm,
make music. But coming into like one of like highest level orchestras of the country and even the world. Um, just like being thrown in there, like having to learn all the repertoire, going from like learning, 2 3 pieces a semester to learning actually like 2 3 pieces every week. That
Yeah.
was quite something for me. But I mean, I'm still like super grateful, and I have developed like a love for orchestral music, and like I've realized like the possibility of music making is like much more satisfying in a way, because you're basically making chamber music with not only 2 3 of your friends, but rather like 80 of hopefully your friends, right?
Yeah.
And colleagues. So like the scale is like way bigger, and like sometimes in the concerts I just get like goosebumps, and it feels really good to just
Yeah.
having that like mass of sound just coming your way, and like having someone who you really trust in the podium just guide you through it, and like injecting you with their musical ideas. It feels really good. So I would say that it was definitely challenging, but it was definitely like very rewarding, and right now I'm at a point where I feel more comfortable, and yeah, it's been a journey. And as I was saying before, long way to go.
Yeah. I know a lot of us, especially musicians, have a hard time adjusting to an environment where it might seem like everyone is better than you. Did you ever feel like that maybe you didn't, this is not to like sound like bad
Hmm.
or anything, but
No, yeah,
feel like imposter syndrome, like that
yeah.
like
Yeah,
you maybe you like, what am I doing here? Like, because I feel that all the time when I'm in
hmm
a room with musicians who are better than me, and I'm like, I don't really know how to manage that. And you were like you were put into that
hmm
like right after graduating college with these amazing musicians, and you're an amazing musician too, but you know what I mean? Like how
yeah, of
put
course,
in.
definitely. Like like all these musicians have like way more experience than me, and that's something I can definitely take away from. I always think, and I've heard this a lot of the times, and I apply that to myself, and I truly believe so, that you shouldn't be in a room where you're the best at what you're doing, because then you have no room to grow and not nowhere to like get inspired from. So you should always try to put yourself in a place where, I mean, probably you're not the worst, but you're also not the best. So you have, so you can learn a little bit of like what not to do and what to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
uh so yeah, um I feel like I'm in a place where I can definitely learn a lot. I mean, I see like all my amazing colleagues, like they're all amazing, and every time I have a questions, like they're always like so nice to me, like how can I do this better, or like how am I supposed to play this, like is this forte like really this forte, like what the composer, because like we're learning so much music, and every composer is different, and like of course like I can learn a lot from the day to day, but also I can like have like shortcuts by asking people like what should I be doing in this situation, right? And it's all about like adjustment, right? If you are not able to adjust to a new environment, I don't think you can really get that far, because life is all about adjustments. Like we look at technology, it's always evolving. We look at ourselves, we're always evolving. Like we're definitely like much more mature than we were 2 years ago, hopefully. And stuff like that. So it's always like about like evolution and adjustment, I'll say.
Yeah.
So definitely it's been good to be in an environment where everybody is so good, and you have like a lot of people to get inspired from.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It also like gives you motivation to practice.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I get to the hall like every day at like like 8 a.m. and I just practice.
Mhm.
So, and it's also very I'm also very grateful for the space, right? Like
Yeah.
just having a consistent space to practice is so important.
Hmm.
Because sometimes with like all the living situations, having roommates and stuff, like you don't necessarily always have the best conditions to practice.
Hmm.
Although like you should be able to just kind of work with what you have. But I'm definitely very grateful for the space to just like if I really want to like go and lock in myself into a room and like just practice all day, I can do that. So that's very very good.
Hmm. I know you guys have crazy schedules and you rehearse so much. How do you
Mhm.
avoid injury when practicing and performing so often? Do you have any tips for musicians who might want to go into orchestra, and really adjust to that new environment?
Yeah, so how do you avoid injury? I mean, luckily I haven't really been injured. Where's wood? Let me knocking on wood. But I'm always like very like mindful of my body, right? A lot of the times I feel like I push myself sometimes a bit too hard. But if anything, I know if I notice that, like anything starts like malfunctioning or like I have like a little pain or something, I'll like immediately freak out. I'll be like, oh my God, why is this happening? And like I will do like some weird stretches. I should probably do that before I start practicing. I mean, I sometimes I do, but I don't always do. But whenever I feel like something is wrong, I'm like, oh my God, what can I do here? So,
Mhm.
and it happened to me with orchestra music. I feel like everything, you just kind of like train your body to do something, right? Like I remember even when I was in orchestra, in school orchestra, I'll get tired like very easily. And it's because I didn't have the training of like, sitting there for
Mhm.
like 3 hours just play. Like you practice, but the way you practice is like a little bit less demanding of like playing orchestra, and like just doing like a lot of like tremolos and stuff. And so even then I'll get tired and I'll be like, oh my God, I hate orchestra. So but once I got the opportunity to play with like such a major orchestra and high level, that there's a lot of like a lot of music that requires a lot from you, a lot of like physical energy from you. um there's some points where I like get really tired, and there's like, especially with new music, like a lot of these techniques require so much like physical motion that sometimes it's music that is like nearly impossible to play. So, I sometimes I freak out a little bit, but then I just like, I talk to my peers and my colleagues and mentors, and I ask them, how do you avoid this? Like recently I was advised to do like some like muscle flossing, which is like a technique that a lot of like athletes use, and it's like where you get like a elastic band and then you just wrap around your arm and you do like a little, it's like kind of like getting your muscles to just like compress to then like relax and feel light. Yeah, and then whenever I feel like some pain on my forearm, I do stuff like that. Another thing is, just like know your limitations. Don't really, I mean, of course, like we're always like so pressured by deadlines. Sometimes we really have to like cram a lot of practice, but just find a way that your practice is like very efficient. I should probably like talk this to myself as well, because sometimes I just like spend a lot of time there, and it's not necessarily, sometimes it isn't necessarily the most efficient way. But I always think about efficiency, and like if you can like cut time and like achieve more stuff in like less time,
Mhm.
so your body doesn't feel it that much. I think that's great. What was the other question that you asked me? You
Like what advice would you give to someone who, for example, is taking an elective in orchestra but wants to pursue orchestra
oh
as a career?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the best person to give an advice, because as I was saying, like I wasn't really into orchestra before
Mhm.
I got into this program. But something I've learned so far is that you really have to know what you want. If orchestra is what you really want, you just have to get into the networking and like find the right information with the right people, and trying to just like put yourself in scenarios where you can learn a lot about what you want to do. Right, let's say like you want to get into this orchestra, um just learn what their orchestra style is, like if they are known for like playing a lot of new music, or if they're known for playing like like really energetic, or like really like you know
Yeah.
um so yeah, just basically put yourself or like put yourself out there to interact with people who might help you uh just like pursue and like achieve your goals. I think that's a very general advice, but I think it's true. It goes out for everything that you want. You just have to like talk to the right people, and yeah, hopefully they will guide you through. And with the work that you put in, because of course like you can gather as much information as you want, but if you don't put in the work, it's likely that you're not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah.
um but yeah, so you put in, you gather the information, you put in the work, and then hopefully the results will come your way. I'm still waiting for the results, but just kidding.
How do you make time for yourself and other hobbies? I have asked a lot of professional musicians how, like, what they do during their free time, like the very little free time that they get.
Mhm.
And I interviewed Christopher Still, who's in the LA Phil too.
Oh, awesome.
And
Yeah.
yeah, he's great. And he told me like he just makes time to, journal at a coffee shop once in a while or spend time with his kids and stuff like that. And I know you have Instagram and like you use your social media to like reach an audience. How do you make time for that? Because I know when I practice, I get so distracted and I start going on my phone and
Hmm.
it's just it's
Same.
yeah, it's an issue. But you're still successful and you still make time for like your practice and your priorities. So how do you make time for that?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of people, they just I feel like a lot of people like have like a rigorous schedule. Like let's say like they're like very active in social media, and they're also like active in like the real world where they will like have a lot of performances and stuff. I think like they really plan out like the days that they will like like post, or or just like kind of like do their hobbies. Let's say like somebody really likes playing golf, like they will pick a day to just go play golf, and like they will try to keep it as consistent as possible. Me personally, sometimes when I really want to be organized, I can be, but for most of the times I'm not the most organized person. Like I have, I used to be that kind of person that they will keep everything in their brain. Like I wouldn't even write anything on my calendar. So I would just like, I have an appointment this time. I will remember in my brain. I'll remember. I don't know. That's kind of, I guess like that was like an exercise for me to like just kind of just keep my like just kind of like stimulates my brain. But later I discovered that it's really good to like just have like some sort of plan, even though like plans are made to like be broken and rules are made to be broken, but at least like you have like somewhere to go. Yeah, me personally with social media, for example, I really enjoy just kind of, and this took me a lot of like overthinking and all, but I just kind of enjoy just putting myself out there.
Mm.
um so I find myself like social media can be a trap, because when you start posting, you kind of are putting time into it, right? Because you have to make the video, and then when you don't necessarily see results, like let's say you really spend like 2 hours making a video, and then like 10 people just watch it, only 10 people watch it, you're like, oh my god, I just spent 2 hours for only 10 people to watch. And
Mhm.
like that's something that I was like, I don't want to go through that, and I thought that that could affect me. So what I decided is just like no matter what, I'll just like post every day, or at least like try to post every day, no
Mhm.
matter what. I would just like like if I'm practicing, I'll just like come up with ideas. I mean, we have unlimited content ideas. The only thing that stops us is the fact that we're overthinking about them. We're trying to put them in the best way for people to watch, but at the end it's all about being yourself and like being real with your audience, because like they just want to see yourself. Like the people who actually follow you, um for the most part, just want to see yourself, what you're going through, and like just like find something that is relatable to them.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just decided to just post whatever experiences I'm having, like behind the scenes, like stuff with practice, and just like put it on social media, and not try to spend so much time in like the editing process. I'm just like having like the 4K resolution with the ultimate gear and like the ultimate microphone, like so you can see like the hair that's poking out of the so I don't really care about that for now. I just care about just like putting out content, right? And like just like it's just kind of like developing a skill, right? Like
Mhm.
it also helps me with like speaking, like public speaking. It also helps me with like just like being in front of a camera. It helps me with like some editing skills, even though I'm not spending so much time on editing. Sometimes like I have a really good idea, but like if I don't edit properly, like it won't come across the right way. So like I'm it's just like kind of like something that I just mostly do no I mean I do to connect with the community, right? But I'm also like putting it there for myself just to like develop skills and like hopefully it will get to someone who relates to the content, and like hopefully it will grow and everything. But at the in the beginning I started just post every day no matter what, because if you post every day then you won't think about like, oh, this video didn't do well, this other video didn't do well. And I also have to practice a lot with like being like, as I was saying earlier, like being playing the other field and like having other projects and stuff. And I don't really have the time to just sit down to edit so much and then have the time to like put my energy like trying to think whether this video do well or not, or like trying to analyze, like if social media was my only thing, like sure I'll do that and I'll like analyze everything. Oh my god, wait, like this video didn't do well. I'm ever not gonna post a video like this again. So okay, this video is doing well, so I'm gonna post more videos like that. Also, like I like variety, right? I don't
Right.
care like this video do well. I'm not gonna put like the same video over and over because like I just wanna like like just develop how creative I can be, and I just want to put like a different video every time, because my main goal is just connect with people and like just like find like have different kind of stories or like relatable content that will reach out to people. So if I just put like kind of like the same video every single day, it's just kind of like just thinking more about like strategically like
Yeah.
growing rather than like organic growth. And I mean like sure like that works, but personally not for me. So I just like usually try to forget about numbers and just like put stuff out there for people to watch and relate to.
Well, you definitely have done that. And I think that like me, for example, I try to post at least once a week for my organization. It's not really like
Mhm.
a, like a as interactive as yours. And it can get to you like,
Yeah,
oh, like I didn't do as well in this post than I did in this one. But I think in the end, it's just the people that you reach are the people that you
yeah.
help, and it is what it is in the
And
end.
another thing that I think is very important, it's not about like how many followers you have, it's about like the community that you have. You can have 1,000 followers that really care about you. I think that's more valuable than having like 100,000 followers that don't give a crap about you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's people like that, there's people like that, like they have like, I don't know, like 500,000 followers and like, but who really like care about them and like, and
Yeah.
like who, yeah. And you can see that with like great creators like Mr. Beast and stuff, that they actually, I mean, they have a lot of followers and they actually, their followers like care about them. Like if something happens to them, like they look out for them. And like if something, like if they put a video, they're always like, like I having just truly a community that really looks out for you. I think is the most important thing.
Yeah. This is kind of like a side question. Do like
Mhm.
your peers in the LA field know about your videos?
Yeah, they comment about it all the time. They're like, "Oh my God, your video is so relatable, or your video is so funny." Like, how do you do it? Like, how do you come up with the ideas? Like,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think
I
it's
basically just like I'm just practicing, and then I record like, oh, okay, oh wait, I this happened to me. Let me just record it. Or like, sometimes I will just be recording, and then I get to the end of the day, oh, this part was funny. Let me just post it, right?
yeah,
Stuff like
definitely.
that. Yeah.
I have another side question about connections. Do you,
Hmm.
how do you, right now, I'm kind of like in the learning process about how to connect people and with people and how to like, really it's really important to have connections, especially in the music world, and
Hmm.
just to navigate your own career. How do
Hmm.
you manage connections? And is there like any advice you would give like me if you have anything about that?
I think nowadays, with our times, I think one of like your major source of connections is actually what we just talked about, which is social media. Like
Mm.
if you put out yourself out there, you'll find a lot of people that might work with you will find you. Like I've got a lot of work through social media,
Mhm.
that is actually insane. So I think it's a matter of like putting yourself out there. A lot of the times we reach out, we are very afraid of like reaching out to people,
Mhm.
and that there's nothing wrong with like reaching out to people. Like, what's the worst like they can say? No reply, or like say no to like any like request that you might have. Sure. I mean, um, we shouldn't be bothered by that, and we should just like keep trying and like keep trying to reach out to people. And because at the end, like nobody, we don't put ourselves out there, like nobody's really gonna know about us. So
Hmm.
I think connections is you really form the connections is something that you can really handle, right? There's a lot of things in life that you cannot handle, but like connections is something that you can really, you decide who you work with, you decide who you spend time with, you decide who you reach out to. So it's connections is something that is really in your hands, like you have mostly mostly control over it, right?
Hmm. Do you think that there are enough mental health resources in the classical music community? And if not, is there something that big organizations like the LA Phil can do to help classical musicians in that sense?
Hmm. I feel like in classical music, there is a lot of like struggle with mental health,
Mhm.
especially because I hate to say it, but it's actually a very competitive world.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a very, very competitive world. And we have this stereotype that we don't make any money. And why
Yeah.
would because like like usually like if you were to make money, you would probably like be, I mean, as a musician, a lot of people think like, oh, you only make money by being in a top orchestra that will pay you enough and like will give you like benefits and stuff. But at the end, there's a lot of like ways to making money out of music, especially now with like social media.
Mhm.
Like if you have skills about like marketing yourself and everything, like there is a lot of ways to like make money. But of course, like orchestra, like just like having a position in an orchestra is like one of the more standard ways. And like if like everybody's trying to get that one spot, like there's a lot of pressure on you, and there's a lot of like you will have a lot of anxiety. And if I were to have like a mental health crisis right now, I wouldn't know where to go.
Yeah.
Like I honestly, and it's really sad to say, because like in moments like that where you're like very vulnerable, you don't really have the will to like look out for help, right? Like like you don't have even the strength to like trying to find a source where you can lean yourself towards to, or like get support from. You just wish that you had something really there that with just one click you can just like get help. And so yeah, that's something that I don't really know. I don't really know about like suggestions um of like how to improve this, but I definitely think that in every like orchestra or like even music schools and everything, there should be like a very strong way of like having mental health resources and like support for people who need them, like very out there, like just there, like you don't need to like go far to reach out to them, or like and like very effective as well. So I don't know, I just encourage all these big organizations to just sit down and take this into consideration seriously, because it's I mean it's very important for us musicians, right? Especially as I was saying, it's a very competitive world. And yeah, there's a lot going on. If you if you look at music school and that you go around and you do a survey, a lot of kids will tell you that they're struggling with mental health, and a lot of them are taking a lot of like pills and stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of sad, but it is the truth, and I'm sure something can be done about it. And yeah,
Yeah, I think there's also a big stereotype about classical music being very harsh and rigorous and also very mentally draining, but it seems like this stereotype has been around forever and like nothing has happened to change it or help that.
yeah,
And I was also thinking about doing a music survey for conservatory students specifically to see what they need,
Mhm.
how we can help them or how their school can help them, but I also think a lot of them are becoming more aware
Mhm.
about the mental health crisis specifically. I went to NEC last summer for a summer festival and there were like posters everywhere about mental health and stuff like that. I don't know if they're
Mhm.
actually, doing anything to help
Yeah.
actual students.
Yeah, that's the one thing, right? Like sometimes like you would market it as you really care about it, but do you actually care about it? And like if I'm going through the process, will I actually get the help I need?
Mm.
Like I just don't want someone to like and then, like if I were to talk to someone, I just don't want to go to someone who will send me to someone else, who will send me to someone else, who will send me to someone else to at the end not get the help I need. Because that happens. I mean, that happens even just like in real life. Like sometimes I want to get something from someone. I call like I don't know, like I call the doctor and they send me here and they send me there and they send like just send me to the
Yeah.
right person
Yeah.
straight, right? Because that also like increases the anxiety and sometimes you just give up. And if you go through that, if you think about like the fact that you have to go through that every time you're going through something like that, you just don't Rishan and it's even worse.
Mhm.
So
And I
yeah.
think a big part of it is just like starting the conversation around mental health specifically to make it more normal. Like that's what we're trying to do, just
Hmm.
have these conversations so that when people are not feeling their best, they can actually tell their teachers. Because when I was growing up in like my in Yola, I didn't really like have anyone to be like,
Hmm.
hey, you know, and there's just like a lot of like stigma and a lot of just like positive and negative experiences that we don't really focus on.
Yeah.
I think we definitely should.
Yeah, I feel like it's also like really good. Just making the teachers aware of it. Like for example, I've been very, very lucky to have very supportive teachers. Like all my teachers, I felt that I've been able to always like talk to them and tell them how I feel and like what I'm going through. And like they've always been very understanding and very helpful towards me, towards my career and everything. And I definitely feel grateful for that. But it's not always the case. So yeah, I think that's something that when it comes to like hiring people that should be taken into consideration.
I just think it's really hard for the conversation to even come up in the classroom.
Hmm.
I recently went to I don't know if you know what the Yola National Symposium was last year.
I've heard it.
Yeah, it's this big meeting where a bunch of music educators from El Sistema programs come together
Hmm. Was that
to
during the summer?
no, that was the Yola
Oh,
National Festival.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's so many Yola National stuff. I don't know.
yeah.
But this year they rebranded it into the Yola National Accelerator, which was a meeting, like I said, where a bunch, like I think it was like 60 music educators from different
Well,
programs from like Juilliard pre-college to
oh wait, did that just happen?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
very
yeah.
recent. Oh yeah, I think I one of my friends was there. Like
Oh,
they
really?
were representing like NEC or something.
So it was just where a bunch of these organizations got together to discuss issues that they were having and how to improve them or what to improve. And a lot of their issues was like financials and stuff like that. But the one thing that I wanted to bring up, I got the opportunity to present there on like the behalf of the youth voice and what the
Mhm.
youth actually need. And from my perspective, it was mental health and wellness resources, like for example injury prevention and like how to learn about your actual body. I didn't know about injury prevention until
Mhm.
I was in ninth grade, and I feel like many
Wow.
students who go to like Juilliard pre-college and Coburn when they're young, they have a much more rigorous schedule than I ever did, and they are more prone to these
Mhm.
injuries, but they don't learn about it because their teachers don't teach them and stuff like that. So it was really just like getting the
Yeah.
to how to help these students and what we can do to help them. And I think that it a lot of the teachers came up to me and they said that they were really grateful for what I had to say and they wanted to implement how to teach them, but also they weren't taught that either. So it's not really like anyone's fault. It's just like classical music in general is very rooted on tradition, and I think it's one of like the hardest genres of music, the most rigorous genres of music, and
Mhm.
it's just really hard to like say something in our community, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's something that definitely needs to be talked about and more like centered towards the youth and what
Mhm.
younger
Yeah,
generations really need.
it's funny that you say that because with a lot of my students, I mean, a lot of my students are very young, like let's say like 9 years old and stuff, and like they come like sometimes like holding the ball like this or like that, and like the
Yeah.
elbow like this, and I'm like, okay, if you keep playing like this, sometimes I'll even put them playing like that for like 2 minutes straight. And like they'll realize like how painful it is. I'm like, you see,
Yeah.
that's what happens. Imagine if you keep playing like that for like,
Mhm.
for the rest of like, I don't know, like for
Yeah.
as long as you need, like you will actually injure yourself. So I think it's important. It's important to talk to the students about like, yeah, and it all comes from like you know, just like personal experience of me sometimes not finding a right way to do something. And then, I mean, as I said, I haven't really got injured, knocking on wood again. But yeah, sometimes I felt like some pain and stuff, and I'm always trying to like see what can I do better, what is not working, like why am I feeling pain here, like am I overworking it, like what's going on, can I switch from
Mhm.
using this part of my body to using this part of my body, because like it's really important to know your body. If you don't know your body, then you don't know the possibilities or limitations of it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think I mean, we're athletes, right? Like
Yeah.
I always talk about this to my teachers, and my teachers always told me like we'll never like understand why musicians are not treated like athletes. Like
Mhm.
athletes work out all the time. Athletes train. Athletes like they stretch after every match. Like let's
Mhm.
say soccer play after every match, you see them with like ice on their legs and stuff, to prevent injuries. Like why do we not do
Yeah.
any of that if we are playing like let's say 10 hours a day? Legit,
Yeah.
like if you have to practice and playing like a top orchestra, like you're playing a lot every day. Like why do we have to find it out on the real world rather than like being educated? I mean, at the end, like like if you're
Yeah.
not lucky enough, you're probably paying like a lot of money to
Yeah.
get education, right? And then you don't even get the right education after all that money that you paid. That's actually kind of sad.
No, yeah,
So
for
yeah.
sure. It's definitely something that like needs to at least be talked about and like, you know.
Mhm.
And I think I don't know who told me this, but somebody told me that like I think it was like athlete injury prevention was like invented in like the 40s or something, and like for
Mhm.
musicians it wasn't until like the 80s. And
Mhm.
it just like shows how behind classical music is in terms of
Yeah.
like injury and like
Yeah.
how to properly educate someone on their instrument. And a
Mhm.
lot of like my technique was terrible in growing up, and then I got my teacher who was Rebecca Real. I don't know if you know her, but she
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
she's awesome. She like fixed me. Like I play so much better now. My posture, I used to have terrible back pain, but one lesson with her and it like went away. And like
Nice.
everything technique wise, like she just helped me so much. And that's also another
Yeah.
issue is like not a lot of students can get that education. Like I have like one other
Mhm.
friend who has a teacher in the LA Phil, but like nobody, it's really hard to come by, you know?
Yeah. I never understand. Like of course, like group classes are great because you get to like play with other people
Mhm.
and you get to bond, you get to interact, you get to make music together. But I will never really understand how, I mean, and this is just very personal of me, like how you have kids just playing like just
Yeah.
like it just looks so
It
like it
looks
just looks
bad.
so painful, and they go
Yeah.
through, I mean, sure, like I get that everybody's meant to like play, and it's good that everybody has the opportunity to have access to music,
Mhm.
but at least like make it at least a little bit more comfortable, because
Mhm.
even if you are not going to pursue a career in music, like you will end up like just hurting your body,
Yeah.
so I think, yeah, I don't know, that's something that's been bothering me for a while, and
No,
that's
yeah.
why I love like interacting with a lot of people, but I feel like if I were to like be an assigned teacher for like a group music class of, let's say, a bunch of like a lot of like a 9-year-old class,
Mhm.
and I see everybody playing like that, I would just I
Yeah.
I'll just freak out because I see everybody like playing and like how do I fix each of them, So I don't know. I feel like there has to be ways of like just kind of fine tune a little bit of like the starting technique, right? Like it doesn't have to be perfect, but at least like put it in a comfortable place for us to work, you know. And
I think
I
a big reason is because a lot of
yeah.
students, specifically in Yola, don't have lessons till much later on. I started playing violin at 8 years old, and I didn't have
Mhm.
lessons until I was 14. So, and by
Wow.
that time, I was behind. Like, I was playing for like what, 7 years at that time, but it did not
Yeah.
sound like I was playing for 7 years because, that one-on-one time is really important,
Hmm.
especially for a musician who wants to grow.
Hmm.
And even though, also, this is another thing that I brought up, even though like someone goes through a music program and doesn't want to do music, like
Hmm.
what can we do to help them use their musical skills in their future career?
Hmm.
Or
Yeah.
like if someone has been playing violin for 10 years and doesn't want to necessarily play violin but still wants to continue to do music, like what can we do to help them in that sense? It's just like a lot of like
It's yeah,
questions.
it's just the same thing as like if you're like okay, if you get on like if you start training soccer, let's say you're not gonna be a soccer player, but you start training soccer, of course there's like gonna be a lot of kids with you, right? Like let's say there's gonna be a class of like 20 kids, I don't know, but the coach makes sure that every kid is like doing it like at least somewhat properly, right? Like all the
Yeah.
drills and stuff, they're always like,
Mhm.
oh, you have to do this, and like like why can we not do that in classical music as
Yeah.
well? Let's say you have like 20 kids and like they each like playing together, just go around and be like, hey, fix this, fix that, that's like, I mean, I don't really know how these classes are run, but I
Yeah.
feel like that's something I would personally do, like, and I know it takes a lot because like the attention span of kids is
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
super short, especially nowadays. But I think at least like try to do something
Hmm.
to get them. I feel like if you're consistent enough of like telling them, hey, it's this way, like, and if you like demonstrate them properly why it should be this way and not the other way, I think like eventually it'll click.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. I think it's definitely they can at least do something. Like
Yeah.
maybe not like an LA film musician would, but it
Yeah,
it
of course. Yeah, just
it
something, just like the basics. Like everything has
yeah.
basics, right? And
Hmm.
then you develop your own and you start from there, right? And then people they yeah, forget about the basics,
Yeah.
But but you have to start somewhere.
Hmm.
And if you have like a very strong basics or like somewhat stable basics, I wouldn't say strong, doesn't necessarily have strong, but somewhat stable basics, like
Hmm.
then it's better for you, right? You have a better time. Like sometimes like I come like I don't know, there was this student that I had, he had been playing cello for a year and then he came to me and then he played something and I played the same thing. I'm like and he's like, oh, your sounds so much better. And I'm like, well, it's because I've been telling you to to put
Yeah.
your ball like this. It's like the realizations, right? And then they are like, oh wow, like I wish mine sounded like that. Why it doesn't sound like that? It's because you're doing this. Like now are you gonna do it
Hmm.
to sound like that? Okay, so just do this, like just listen to what I say and then it'll sound better. And then they do it and then they realize, oh wow, and then it actually like helps it, right?
Yeah.
It's just about realization and stuff. But yeah, it is hard when there's a lot of people around in the
Definitely.
class.
And just like that one-on-one teacher connection to student can also really help.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I'm just like wondering if what we can do to make sure like every music student
Hmm.
can have that because every music student needs that. I
Yeah,
don't know if there's one music student who like had like grew up in a group setting and like became a prodigy or anything like
I
that.
know, I know. I think like I wouldn't throw people in a group setting like right away. I feel like you will have it's like leveling up. I mean, I play video games, right? I play video games, and like whenever I play video games, you just have to like level up. And like for example, let's say you want to play competitive, you cannot really like play competitive if you haven't reached a certain level. Like, or
Mhm.
if you don't really, you cannot really play this game mode if you haven't reached a certain level. You usually start with the basics. Let's say you get like 5 lessons, just half an hour, just so you get an idea of how to play the instrument, and then you get put into a setting, right? Like into a setting where you can make music with other people. Um, But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm no one to talk about that, but just like throwing my thoughts out there. Anybody can disagree, but it's just like my personal thought.
I think most people will agree with you. Thank you so much for joining us for this interview. And if you want to learn more about Classically Imperfect, make sure to click the link in our bio. Bye.
Sounds good. Bye bye. Thank you for having me.